Good morning. My name is Bob Felden. Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name is Zhipeng.
What should I call you?
Please, call me Zach.
Could you tell me where you're from?
I'm from China.
Can I see your identification, please?
Yes, here you go.
Thank you. Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about where you live. Have there been any recent improvements to your hometown?
Yes, there were a number of improvements to the downtown area a couple years ago. And now, this part of the city is full of shops and restaurants. It's very nice.
Are there any other areas which you think could be improved?
Of course, there are probably many areas which could do with improving, and even just maintenance. There's one area near the railway station which needs cleaning up, in particular because it's so dangerous at night.
Which area of your hometown is the most attractive?
The downtown area is really the prettiest part of my hometown, because of all the bright lights and interesting buildings, as well as the atmosphere, especially at night.
Now, let's talk about seasons. Which season of the year is your favorite?
Well, it probably sounds strange, but winter is definitely my favorite season. I love being warm and cozy inside, while it's freezing cold outside. And I really enjoy winter sports, like ice skating and skiing.
What is the weather typically like where you live during this season?
Cold. It snows all winter, and in the middle of the winter, the temperature gets down to about -20 degrees.
Do you think you will always prefer this season?
I think so. Although perhaps when I get older, I might feel the cold more, I guess. And if I couldn't enjoy winter sports, then I probably wouldn't like winter very much.
What types of things do you enjoy doing during this season?
Well, apart from winter sports, I love to stay indoors with my family and watch movies. Shopping is also pretty good, because all the shopping malls have good central heating. Also, we have the Ice Sculpture Festival during winter, and that's a lot of fun.
Now, let's talk about the outdoors. Which outdoor places or locations do you enjoy going to?
I like to spend time walking along the river, because I love to be near the water. I also like to be up high, where I can get a good view and perspective of where I am. So I like going to the top floor of my city's tallest buildings and enjoying the views.
Do you prefer to spend time indoors or outdoors?
Of course. Coming from a cold climate in winter, that really depends on the season. But for the most part, I like to be outdoors, as long as I've got the right type of clothing.
What are some of your outdoor hobbies?
I enjoy walking, hiking, and playing sports outdoors. I also love skiing and ice skating because of the thrill I get of going fast.
Do some parts of your country have more beautiful outdoor spaces than others?
Yes, just like any country, I suppose. China is quite diverse in that some areas are noted for lush, green outdoor spaces, and other areas for their beaches and lakes. It depends.
Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand? Here's some paper and a pencil for making notes. And here's your topic. I'd like you to talk about a traditional story which is popular in your country.
You might have heard of the story I'm going to tell you about, because a movie was made in English about it. It's called Mulan. Anyway, this is an ancient Chinese story which is sourced to a poem written a long time ago. Mulan, the daughter of a former army general, lived with her family in a little village. Her father taught her to ride a horse and use a sword, which was quite unusual because normally only boys learn these skills. One day, the government called for one soldier from each village to help boost the army who were fighting important wars. Mulan's father was chosen from her village, but she knew that he was too old to fight, but too honorable to say so. She was faced with a dilemma, as she had no older brother who could go, and her younger brother was much too young to go to war. So she had the idea that she would go instead. She dressed in her father's armor, bought a horse, and rode away in the middle of the night to join the army without telling anyone in her family. Mulan spent 10 years fighting, and was even awarded a special prize from the emperor. During this time, no one knew she was a woman. She was offered a wonderful job by the emperor, but refused, saying she only wanted to go home to be with her family. So she did, and returned home to find her father alive, but old and frail. She swapped her armor for beautiful silks, and was a beautiful woman. When her friends from the army came to visit, they could not believe their eyes. The story spread across China, but no one knows if it was based in fact or not. But I think it was. The story was well known in China because it was popular with young children, especially girls. But then, when Mulan, the movie, was made by Disney, it became popular worldwide. My grandmother told me this story when I was about 7 years old. What I learnt from this story was that keeping face and honor is really important, as well as protecting one's family above all else. I love this story.
Thank you. Would you recommend this story to others?
Yes, of course. It's a great story.
Do you enjoy traditional stories?
Yes, I do. I probably enjoyed them more when I was younger, though.
We've been talking about a story which is well known in your country, and now I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider first the topic of traditional stories. Many people believe that traditional stories are irrelevant for modern society. Do you agree or disagree?
Actually, I couldn't disagree more. I think that traditional stories often contain a strong moral or message for how we should live our lives. And these morals remain constant regardless of time. Traditional stories are an excellent reminder to return to these values and morals, and remind us what is simple but important in our lives. Anyway, you see these same morals repeated in modern forms of storytelling, such as movies, so they are definitely still topical and relevant.
What type of traditional stories do children generally enjoy? Why do you think this is so?
I think young children tend to enjoy stories which have a little of everything, because they like to feel all the emotion, such as suspense, fear, happiness, and courage. They also need to be fast-moving to keep children entertained. As well as this, children like stories which have happy endings. That's because happy endings make them feel more secure and confident, and don't give them nightmares.
What can traditional stories tell us about a culture?
I think that traditional stories express many things about a culture. Obviously, there are cultural references to basic everyday things like food, clothing, and housing. But beyond that, there are messages about the values a society holds important. For instance, that might be family values, or it might be related to love or fidelity, things like that. Stories also tell us about the position of certain people in society, such as men and women, rich and poor. Therefore, I believe that there is a lot of cultural information contained within traditional stories.
Now, let's talk about preserving and protecting traditions. In what ways have traditions changed in your country, if at all, over the last 50 or so years?
I don't think that cultural traditions have changed significantly because Chinese people are very proud of their culture and traditions. So we like to hang on to them carefully. For instance, our festivals and celebrations have remained the same, and people observe traditions at New Year and other special occasions. The only thing that has changed is the material that we use to make things. For example, traditional lanterns can now be made from more durable material than paper. Progress can aid the preservation of tradition, I believe.
Many societies are losing aspects of their culture and tradition as time passes. What are some of the solutions to this issue?
I think the solution lies in what value is placed on traditions, because this sends a message to people about what is important. For instance, if the government funds festivals and events which support traditions, then I think this is a proactive solution which helps to maintain the traditions associated with that festival. Another way to preserve culture and tradition is to ensure it is passed on to the next generation. So this involves spending time explaining and sharing traditions with young children. In these ways, culture can be preserved.
Do you think the current generation is more or less interested in tradition than previous generations? Why might this be so?
It's hard to say. I think my generation might be slightly less interested in traditional ways than my parents, though. Perhaps my generation is more concerned with the latest technological item than learning how to make dumplings the way our grandmothers did. But that's not to say that we don't value traditions any less. It's just that society has changed somewhat, and we all have to keep up with our busy lives. So maybe traditions get streamlined or something like that. Important holidays and festivals are still very important, however.
Thank you. That is the end of the speaking test.